Hi, my name is Felice and I'm the happy Star Wars guy. Today we're going to talk about Marvel Comic Star Wars uh, issue number 8 through 12. Kind of where we left off um, in the last couple of comics. I told you Han Solo ends up running into his old wife. And in this uh, series of comics, we find out that uh, Sana Solo is actually not his wife. They were making things up to one of Han Solo's great plans, trying to get out of something. And they got married to pull a trick or two out there in Smuggler land together. Sana ends up telling Princess Leia, hey, don't be mad at Han. We weren't really married. It was just kind of a scheme. And they kind of clear that up. But you can tell Leia was a little miffed and about everything. But at the end of the day, it all resolves, and Sana ends up helping out the rebels. And the other really cool thing is last week we talked about Luke going through Obi-Wan's journal and reading a story about their time on Tatooine when he was younger. And now Luke is going through the journal and going throughout the galaxy trying to find some more Jedi lore and hopefully some more artifacts. So for some reason, he decides to fly to the moon of Nar Shaddaa, which is known for scoundrels, smugglers, and the like. It's kind of like the cantina on Tatooine, but the whole moon. It's where all the smugglers gather. Not quite a place for Luke, since he's still young and naive, and we see that in the comic. But he whips out his lightsaber to defend himself and pretty much puts a mark on his head, and a bounty hunter ends up introducing Luke in a bounty hunter way to Gracchus the Hutt, this giant Hutt, who is an avid collector of Jedi artifacts or Force user artifacts. He has artifacts, he has holocrons, he has lightsabers, he has statues and busts and other artifacts from the Sith world as well. And he takes Luke and makes him kind of a warrior, and you see this Colosseum battle like back in the days of Rome, and Luke fights what he finds out later to be a Force-sensitive stormtrooper that was there to get Luke. It's really cool. Luke gains a few lightsabers. Chewbacca and C-3PO go to help Luke. They run into none other than Dengar, the bounty hunter, who is looking for Chewbacca and Han Solo because there's a bounty on their head. We learned at the beginning of the movie Star Wars that A New Hope that Jabba really wanted to make sure the shipment got through. Han Solo at the end of the movie Star Wars A New Hope tries to leave to finish the cargo that he was supposed to deliver, so he didn't have a bounty on his head. But then Han Solo does the right thing and then gets tangled up with the rebels, and then there's a bounty on his head. So Dengar tries to get Chewbacca, and it's really fun because Chewbacca gets the best of Dengar. While Han Solo, and Sana and Han and Leia are arguing, they find out that Luke's in trouble, so they go to Nar Shaddaa, and Han Solo's like, what is Luke doing on Nar Shaddaa? He has no right to be there. And we see that in the comic. There's a great battle in that Colosseum. Gracchus the Hutt says, before you we have the last Jedi, and he fights this other alien because Gracchus also collects the last of every species. It's kind of like He's a Lobo from DC Comics, if you know what that means. But anyway, he collects all these rare rare aliens and the last of their kind, and makes some money by having them battle each other. So that's kind of a neat thing. And then Han, Leia, they go to save Luke, and R2 ends up saving Luke's lightsaber, aka Anakin's lightsaber, passing it on to Luke. Luke passing on lightsabers to Han, Leia, and the rest of the group, and they all battle their way out of Gracchus' Coliseum, and Luke gets what he can, and they save the day. And that's kind of where the story ends with this series between 8 and 12. And it's super cool to see all these characters come about. It was awesome when Dengar showed up in it, because Marvel was starting to really pull in these other characters that we know and we haven't really seen outside of, you know, one scene in Empire Strikes Back, right? If you haven't read any of the stories, you wouldn't know much about Dengar. If you hadn't read the comics, you wouldn't see him that much. So it's really cool to see Dengar in the flesh on the comic book pages. It was super cool to see all the Jedi artifacts that Gracchus the Hutt had collected. And he has a necklace around, he's so huge, he has a necklace of lightsabers around his neck. And eventually that gets cut off, and that's where the lightsabers come from, that the rebels end up using along with Luke, which was really cool to see them wield those. Leia, of course, to see her wield it, you know, even though she doesn't know she's a Force-sensitive user at all. So it was really neat. It was a very fun comic book series, and it was the first set of an entire calendar year of 12 months. And next there is the Star Wars Annual, which I'll cover next week. And then after that, there's a new story arc that crosses over various comic series that were released at the time called Vader Down. And this ends up being a series where Vader's kind of going rogue and kind of going after the rebels, and we'll talk about that as well in the future. So I look forward to sharing some details about that. I hope I didn't spoil too much. The graphics, the dialogue in these are just so spot on and excellent. Marvel has done a super job of really taking the story arc and giving it new life, and giving us new insight on what the rebels did in between Star Wars A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So I hope you've enjoyed this short video synopsis, and I hope to see you next week as we go over Star Wars, the first annual of Marvel. Once they had, as I told you before, Marvel got the contract back for Star Wars because Disney owns Marvel, and I'm really happy with how Marvel has really carried the story arc and given us a more in-depth look at all the background stories that happen in between the movies. So it's just been very enjoyable. I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy and dealing with COVID-19, and hope we all get through this together, and I hope these videos are helping kind of pass the time along. So have a great week, and may the Force be with you.